Hello everyone, I'm Nicole Bond from the Lincoln Intermediate Unit 12. I'm an educational technology specialist here, and I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about some Google Classroom tips and tricks. So this won't be a comprehensive Google Classroom piece, but I am going to talk about a couple of little tricks that are really helpful while you're using Google Classroom. So if you need to reach out to me after this webinar, you can use this particular, my email, which is right here on this slide, nabond@iu12.org. So as we get started today, this is one of our live Zoom webinar meetings. So just keep in mind that you may be muted and your video is probably off, just so that we can focus on the presentation and the directions that I'm giving. But, and if you get a chance, you might go on and rename yourself so I know who you are. But if you have questions or comments, you can use the chat feature, which you should see at the bottom of your Zoom webinar meeting, or the Q&A feature. Both of these will come up for me with responses or questions so that I can interact with you today while I'm walking you through some of our tips and tricks for Google Classroom. So we would like to remind you of some of our LIU resources. First of all, if you're looking for any of our webinars which have been recorded, you can find them at this short link to our LearnOn website, also on our YouTube channel where we upload all of our webinars, synchronous and asynchronous. And of course on our LearnOn website where you would have found this webinar linked in the LearnOn calendar. So as we go into this fall, I know a lot of us are facing some sort of combination of all of these particular ways of going back to school. I know that some districts are looking at face-to-face and some are looking at being completely virtual, while others are looking at some form of blended learning. And it might just be certain grades, or it might be A and B days, or A and PM. And we're kind of facing this inevitability that should the cases rise, we may be looking at having to transition from one way to the other, or if cases were to decline, we might be transferring from one case to the other. So one of the things we have to do moving forward is really be ready to pivot and be flexible with what we're doing and have digital resources and know how to use our digital resources as we move into the fall and as we move into learning this fall. So one of the things that we have out on our LearnOn website is our roadmap to returning. And you'll see the short link is down here at the bottom of this particular slide if you end up wanting to go out and go through it. There's a lot more content on the website which will step you through this entire process from reflecting and thinking about the lessons we learned this spring as we had to move quickly to virtual learning with our students. What we learned about ourselves, what we learned about interacting and communicating with students and with their caregivers or parents. All of those little pieces help inform us as we move forward, as well as resources on best practices that can help us learn and develop and become better, not just face-to-face or virtual, but both, how we can blend both together and be better at instructing online, and how we can individualize our curriculum and our resources and our tools for our students so that each student has a choice at what task he or she is performing and how he or she can perform it. We have information about teaming up and collaborating, lists and resources full of tools, but we hope not to make them too overwhelming. So you can identify what you would normally do in the classroom and what that might look like if it was blended or if you had to move it online. Additionally, some of the OER resources. Resources to help you plan and orient how you can think about how to best meet the needs of your students through formative assessment. And then information and resources on the conversion process, how to start to move those things which you know you don't have digitally onto an online format. And then the idea of preparing to accelerate those students who are demonstrating mastery according to those formative assessments that you've given, or remediate those students who are maybe missing some pieces that you feel like you need to go back and hit on. So a lot of what I'm going to show you today as I start to go into Google Classroom are some of those pieces. We're going to talk about the fact that you can assign certain assignments to certain students and not to everybody, so that you can accelerate or remediate certain students, so that you can take the formative assessment and give the student the right task, and you can individualize the instruction as needed for your students really easily in Google Classroom. So right now is really the time that we're being the prep chef. It's the beginning of the school year. We're still pulling things. We're pulling things for individualized instruction. We're pulling different choices in content. So we may have a video that goes with this resource. We might want to give a student a choice between a video, a podcast, and a text piece. So finding those multiple pieces, or finding a piece that's digital, online, something that normally you would have read in class and annotated in class. Finding all those communication resources, how to best communicate with families when some of your families have students who might be in your classroom, and some of your families may have students who are at home learning virtually. And then the tools we need to both create resources for our students and to deliver those resources to our students, and which tools are best and which ones integrate with our learning management system if we have one, or whatever our hub is. So as you think about tools, as you think about your resources, what I've been telling everyone is that as you're working in a learning management system, really try to use the tools that are built in already with that management system. So in the case of Google Classroom, which we're going to look at today, all I can do is encourage you to use Google tools with Google Classroom. So the apps integrate directly with Google Classroom. And those are the apps we really need to lean on heavily when we're using Google Classroom. But when we're using other tools, we need to look and think about which tools integrate really nicely with Google Classroom, so that when our students are using this learning management system, this tool of Classroom as their learning hub, they're not having to learn 4 or 5 extra logins, or how to get to the link, to the next link, to the next link, to get to the piece that you want them to complete. So we're really going to be looking at those pieces. So Google Classroom is really your restaurant. After you've curated and chopped things up, you think about how we present it to our students. Classrooms where you have that presentation, where you determine what your portions are going to be, how much you're going to give a student, or when you're going to give something to a student. So timing is a piece of that, and how you're going to break it down, where you're going to give choices in the menu. So if you think about Google Classroom as your restaurant, it can make the lift of learning with Google Classroom a little bit easier. So now we're going to get into the tips and tricks. And again, this is not a comprehensive Google Classroom tutorial. I'm just giving you some of the highlights and things that might make your Google Classroom experience have a little more bang for its buck. So I'm going to be in the slide deck, but I'm also going to be dancing out into my Google Classroom instance so that you can see exactly what I'm showing about, or showing you and what I'm talking about. So the first thing I want to talk about is the stream. So the stream can be a great place to make announcements, but it can be a burden. It can be a place where you send all of your caregivers, if you're trying to keep it super simple because you're dealing with the littles and you just want the caregivers to go in and find the resource, and it's not important maybe that they go into the classwork section where they have a lot of choices. So sometimes folks want to tidy up the stream, because what happens, most people find out, the automatic setting is that as soon as you assign something in the classwork section of Google Classroom, it also gets posted to the stream. Which, again, if you're just one place for all of your caregivers to go, that's not too bad. But if we're talking about students, what happens is that stream just has random posting of assignments and announcements, and they're not in any order. So they're not curated in a way that your students can consume them easily. So one of the things I like to do is actually hide notifications. So I'm going to go out of the slide presentation here and go over to my classes so you can see this. I'm going to go into this particular test class because I have some assignments in here, and I know the students that are enrolled in here. So if I'm in this particular test class, what you're going to see when I go up here is this is my stream. So you can see in my stream that all of my assignments are in here, and it shows me as an educator how many have been assigned or turned in, etc. And that's great if I'm just sending parents into my Google Classroom for some reason. Then they can just see, hey, I posted. But that's not my goal with my stream. A lot of folks, especially when you start to deal with older elementary, middle, and even younger elementary, if the students are the ones going into classroom and doing the work, you want to tidy this up so the stream is just the place where you post announcements like, hey, don't forget tomorrow's hat day kind of situation. So I'm going to go up here to the gear. The gear in the upper right-hand corner is the settings for this particular class. So each instance of Google Classroom, that first page we saw all those classes, so each instance has its own settings. So I can set this for each one. Now, I've seen Google Classroom used for clubs before, And this is something that folks leave on sometimes with clubs. That way the students can post announcements having to do with like when the club's meeting, or like the yearbook club, when certain things are due for that club, or when there's a practice, if it's an intramural. So just, think about how you're using this resource. So in here, you'll see that you can rename everything up here, but I want to scroll down here to the stream. So the first thing about the stream that you need to know is that you can toggle on whether students can post or comment. This is one of the first things I discovered when I was first using Google Classroom and I didn't have a training, is that I left on students can post and comment, and my students found out and they were posting and commenting. The thing about that is that there's no moderation. So the students will post or comment without moderation. If you know your students are great about that sort of thing, you have a great rapport with your kids, you might want to leave it on. It's also something you can toggle on later. So for instance, maybe as I get to know my students, I want to open up the students can only comment so that I can post something in the stream and they can leave comments or ask questions on that particular post. But usually at the beginning of the year, when I'm getting to know who my students are, I like to leave it so that only I am the person who can post in the stream. I don't want not random, but I don't want my students posting in the stream. So I make sure I have that set. And then the other thing is the classwork on the stream. So this is where I can toggle this on or off. So if you haven't found this, I can hide notifications, and that will get rid of, every time I post a classwork, it will only go into the classwork. It will not show up in the stream. Only my announcements will show up in the stream. The condensed will simplify it, so it's just a strip, spawn, posted, etc., etc. This is where it's set right now. So you kind of saw the little mess of what I had going on there, which is fine, again, if I'm maybe trying to use that stream as my main means of communication to like parents, if I was maybe a kindergarten or a preschool teacher. So I'm gonna hide those notifications for now. When you're in these settings, you wanna make sure you go up in here and save in the upper right-hand corner. It will prompt you if you X out before saving. It will say, hey, are you sure you wanna discard all of this? So I'm gonna hit save. And voila. All you see is my one announcement that I posted. All of those assignments are gone, which is fantastic because I don't want my students digging through the stream for my assignments. I want my students going over to classwork, where I've organized my assignments by topic. And they can say, oh, this is the week of August 24th. I know that these are the assignments I need to complete for that week. So if you're not familiar with topics, topics are up here under the create, and they are fantastic. So let's see. And I can put during the week or something like that as a reminder for them. But when I do that, it creates a topic, and as I assign things, I can put them in the topic, and it helps organize Google Classroom. The great thing about topics too is that I can drag these babies around. So for instance, if I want week 1 at the top, that's fine. But if I want, the latest week up at the top, because I find when students click in, they want to see it right away, I can drag my topics wherever I need them to be. So if I organize it by week, it makes things a little bit easier. I'm gonna hop back over to my slide deck. That was my first tip or trick. The next one is adding video to Google Classroom, assignments and announcements. So what you may have noticed there in my stream was that I had an announcement and it had a video on it. So this is exciting because I think a lot of us are like using Flipgrid, and Flipgrid is fantastic. It's great for interacting with students, but this is a way you can use video in Google Classroom without having to go out to Flipgrid, and you can kind of control it a little bit in case you were thinking about not using Flipgrid. So I'm going to go back into classwork here, and I'm going back to my stream. So you can see here, welcome class, view the video below. All I have to do is click on that video, and I have a video here. So I'm not going to hit play on this particular video. Take that one out. But that's in here. If I want to share something else with my announcement, all I have to do is go to add. And if I go to file, I can find a video that I've saved on Google Drive and upload that in here. So here's the thing about the videos. You can do the YouTube thing. So sometimes with screencasting, for instance, I like to use Screencastify. It will automatically put it in Google Drive or give me the option of putting it in YouTube. I may not want to upload everything to YouTube. Sometimes you just don't want to because you don't want it out there, even if it's unlisted so nobody can really find it other than with a link. Sometimes you just want to use something that you've already saved as a file. The one thing I would say with the file video, if you know you're going to have more than 120 students clicking on it a day, Google will start to block it and say that too many people have clicked on it. So you might want to put it on YouTube if you know you have that many. But if you're dealing with maybe a class of 30, or maybe you're dealing with 50 students, doing this as a file might be an option for you. So all you would have to do is record it on whatever particular platform you want to use. For me, I like to use Screencastify, and upload it to your drive. Once it's on your drive, you just go to File, and if I go up here and select File Type Videos, it's going to bring up all the videos that I have of myself explaining all kinds of things to put in here. So I can pre-record my video and stick it in here. What's great about video is that I could do a screencast of how to do something and include it with, say, an assignment. So for example, if I'm over here on my assignments and I've got a question like, what do you think? You see, I stuck a video in there. I can explain my video and what my expectations are in my what you think, so my students can click on it and watch me. One, it adds my face. So if we're dealing with virtual learning, I feel like a lot of times we feel disconnected because we don't see each other. Even with the screen, sometimes seeing each other isn't enough. But that gives you the opportunity to make that connection with students. Additionally, I'm just gonna say most, maybe not all, but a lot of students would rather watch a video of you explaining what you want and what your expectations are versus reading a paragraph of instructions. So it's another way to kind of differentiate and meet the needs of your learners. You can still type out all your instructions and include the video where it explains it, but it's another way to meet some student needs. I like to do it with a screencast where I might explain like, hey, here's where I want you to click, and these are the resources I want you to use, and don't forget to do this, don't forget to do that, don't forget this is where you turn it in. So you could do it as a tutorial on how to turn in assignments, or you could do it as a tutorial to explain how to do an assignment, or you could include your screencast where you're talking about how to solve this particular math problem. So it's really robust, and I think a lot of times when we're dealing with Google Classroom, we think about docs, and we think about forms, and we think about slides, but video, totally, we don't even think about it. And the thing is, we can make that assignment as a video, and the students can do the same thing. They can record and submit a video. So that's the other piece I wanted to share with you. And you can do this from your own devices, but if you have a mobile device, whether it's a cell phone or a tablet, you can download the Google Classroom app, and it's even easier for you to post a video. So I'm gonna actually pull up, I think I have it pulled up in here. If not, I might hop over to my iPad. So I'm gonna hop over to my iPad so that you can see this and go into Classroom. And I will show you what it looks like on the iPad shortly. So if I stop sharing my screen, I'm going to go over here to my video, and I'm going to switch my video over to my document camera. Now I'm going to take a second here for me to focus and get my screen just so. There we are. And I might need to turn off my lights so that we don't have that awful glare on there. So you can just see my iPad screen. So if I go back into my test class, which I was just in, which appears to be, is it upside down for you? Test class. So if we're in here and I decide to make an announcement, I can do that right in here, but one of the things I want to point out is actually up here. So if you're looking closely, I'm clicking on the attachment button. And what that brings up at the bottom of the screen is the ability to use my camera. And I can actually record just on my iPad the message I want to do. So this totally circumnavigates the whole using Screencastify and setting up my webcam and making sure people can hear or see me. Instead, it allows me to just record right on my iPad. So I could easily just right now record my message to my students. So I'm going to do that while I'm off screen. Select video, turn my camera, Hi guys, this is a surprise. So once I've recorded that, just using my rear-facing camera, I can hit use video. It's already rendering it into a video and attaching it to my announcement. So if I just type something in here, surprise, and hit send up at the top, it's going to be posted right to my screen. So what I'm going to do is switch back off of this camera and back to my shared screen so that you can see what's going on here. So if you look at my shared screen now, I'm going to go back over to my screen. And there it is. This is the video I just recorded on my iPad and posted right to my screen. So if you have a device, a mobile device, so it's processing, it takes a second. If you have a mobile device, you can use that to really quickly just record videos on your phone and post them to your classroom explaining a concept, or at least enough to say, hey, here's my face. So that's another one of my pro tips. Try to use video on Google Classroom. It helps amplify the learning, and it's a great way to help differentiate meet the needs of your learners. So I had that reminder right in here about using the app. Here's a screenshot of what it looks like. You'll click on the little file up here at the top in order to bring up that piece. Let's refresh it. I zoomed in too far. There we go. So you will click on that file piece up here to bring up this where you can use the camera and select video. You can also pick a photo you already have or a video you've already recorded. I can not use anything. We are. So if I come back over here to the student selector, this is the other one I want to show you guys, and I can show you this in Google Classroom, is that I can choose the students that I assign assignments to. And it's really, as soon as I have students enlisted, it's as simple as checking the boxes. So if you haven't used the student selector, this is another way to do an assignment. So sometimes what I would do is I would actually make like 3 versions of an assignment. I would make maybe my ELL version that has my ELL supports with some visuals. Maybe I've translated some of the instructions into Spanish for those students, and I would make that copy and be like ESP for Espanol. And then I would make my advanced copy that maybe had a little less structure to it, or maybe had some advanced skills where for the students I knew had already mastered a couple of things, and I would just, label it A. And then I would make a second copy for the students who I wanted to target, maybe who needed a little extra practice or a little extra support, and I would label it B. So I would do that, and then when I go into here, I would just reuse the post and change the assignment. So what I'm going to do is kind of go in and show you how you can do that real fast. So I'm in here in my Google Classroom. Again, I'm going to go up to classwork. I'm going to go to create, and I'm going to go to my assignment. So this might be tell a story about something that's really incredible in the last 3 years. Leave it open. So what I can do in here is then I can add whatever assignment I need to. So if I want to give them a doc that has a whole bunch of supports in it and steps them through the process of the story I want them to tell, I can do that using Google Drive in the 3 different instances I've done. And then over here on the right-hand side below assign, a lot of times people overlook this. So I have this ability to make this an assignment for all of my classes. But over here next to students, I have the ability to choose the students. So in this particular version that I attached is only for this student. I can do that and just assign it to one student. And that student will be the only one who sees that assignment. The other students won't even know that they have a slightly different assignment. So what I did a lot of times is make the base assignment and then made a copy and tweaked the copy, made a copy and tweaked the copy. So a lot of the students didn't even realize they maybe had slightly different assignments with different information or different structures and supports built into them. So it's just something to think about when you do that. Because now I can assign that to just that one student. Once I've done that, now I didn't give it a topic, so it's right up here. But I can go up here and hit reuse post. Just give it a second to load. It's going to save you time. Well, if it loads. What it will do is it'll bring up all of my previous posts. So I don't have to retype all those instructions. All I have to do is go in and change my attachment to another attachment. So maybe it's the other version of the assignment that I want to assign to another group of students. So she's spinning today. I'm not be able to get her to work. Better, I just posted to the assignment. So it'll come up by all of the classes and all of the teachers and when it was created. And then I will just click on it. Because of time today, I'm not going to be able to show you probably that reuse post, since it doesn't seem like she wants to do for us. But if I click reuse, I can do the tell a story assignment. It will have the same title. And then once I pull it up, I can go and change the students I want to assign it to, change the files that are attached to it, and reuse it really quickly. So that's another way to kind of hack the system, make it a little bit faster. So I'm going to go back over here. So the other piece that I want to remind you is that there is a built-in rubric. The great thing about the rubricing tool is after you've made one rubric, you can reuse it. So if you use one rubric, say for a particular project and it's based on creativity, or you use a writing rubric that you use all the time for all of your writing assignments, the rubric's built in, so it makes scoring way, way, way easier. So let me see if I can go in here to classwork. I'm going to go in up here. And if you haven't used the to review section, also a great place to go and find what you need to score. So for me, this is work in progress. This is work without due dates. I'm going to go down here to ELA writing essay. What I want to show you is this one that's been turned in. So I'm looking at a student, it's a fake student, who turned in an essay. And you'll see over here, I built a rubric, so I can go over here and just quickly score it. When I hover my mouse, it tells me the area. If I need more information about the rubric, this drop down will give me that information. So that's how easy it is to score a student. I just click on it. It already calculates the score in the sections and it gives me the total grade. And then once I'm done, I can return it. So that's the scoring rubric. I am going to go back over here to my class so you can see how to create one. So I'm going to go up here and create. I'm going to create a big assignment. So today, directions go here. So once you get that started, over here on the right-hand side is where your rubric is. And once I hit plus, it's going to allow me to create a rubric or reuse a rubric. You can also build one out of sheets. You have to, if you Google the template, it'll come right up and you can build your own in sheets and reuse it that way. I'm going to click on reuse just so you can see how that comes up. So you'll see like my other essay rubric for that is in there, but I can also go to another class and grab a rubric out of another class. So once I've created it for one class, it's not like I have to create it for every single class. They're really, really handy dandy. So I'm not going to do that because I want you to see what it takes to build a rubric in Classroom. So I'm just going to hit the plus sign here and create a rubric, and it brings it up. So it tells me up here I can choose whether I'm going to use it to score. Like if I just want to use it to give feedback and turn off scoring, I can do that, and then no grade's going to be attached to the rubric. It's just going to be feedback about categories. I'm going to leave it on for now. I have to have a criterion, so this might be complete sentences. My criterion would be, this is a description. Subject, verb, and punctuation. And capital, So I might create 3 categories. It is ascending. So 3, 2, 1. Oh, you know what, I'm going to make it 4. So it might be all elements of a sentence missing one of the elements of a sentence. We have it in here. Right, so that might be one category I'm scoring, and over here it might be something else. I'm just going to do the one category at a time. So you see it are automatically calculated 4 points. Once I hit save, oops, it doesn't like that I have this extra criterion in here. Do that, hit save. So that rubric is right here. Now the one thing I would say caveat-wise is that's a rubric for 4 points. It's going to calculate based upon what my total is. So if I want this assignment to be 4 points, I need to set it for 4 points, or it's going to do calculating that's a little bit different. It's going to kind of weight the score. So it would be more like, if I put it out of 100, it would take all 4 of those categories and be like 25, 50, 75, 100. So I'm going to go back up here to assign. And now I have that rubric assigned with that particular assignment, write an essay. And you'll see it comes up. So it'll be clickable just like the one I showed you with the other students. When I go in, it'll have that as a complete sentences, and I can calculate as students turn things in. So the rubric is another great feature that's in Google Classroom. That if you're not using it, now's a great time to start building those rubrics so that you can use them throughout the year. Whether you're face-to-face, blended, or online, having that tool is nice because once it's created, it's created. You don't have to keep creating it. You don't have to make photocopies. You just have to attach it to an assignment whenever you need it. So that's the rubricing. And the other piece I wanted to show you was the comment bank. So I'm going to go back over here. This is when we were scoring that student. Remember, I was using the rubric over here. So remember, that's the clickable rubric. So the one I just made, it would just be one of these categories, and I would click through those 4. It would give me those 4 bars, and it would give me those descriptors as I put my cursor over, just like this one is. What I'm going to show you is actually the comments bank. So, former ELA teacher, let me just say that the comment bank is going to save you so much time. So you know how a lot of times you use the same comments, like this is not a complete sentence, or you want to ask, is there punctuation that belongs here, or what about a capital letter, or the comments you might ask, or you might add. There might be positive ones that you want to add, like I really appreciate the time you spent on this assignment. It is clear by the work you submitted that you really worked hard. So I might want something like that. In order to add comments, so once I create that bank, I can add them whenever I want to. So in a Google Doc, we can always add these comments, but if I highlight here and hit this plus sign, I can do this hashtag, and it brings up the comments that are in my comment bank. So if you build yourself a robust comment bank, you won't have to type that giant paragraph over and over and over again when you want to use it. You just go down and click it, hit comment, and there it is. So that's a huge time saver. Again, it's one of those things, if you start to build the comment bank maybe as the year goes on, but as you get a couple of months into the year, maybe 2 or 3, if you're using Classroom, regardless if it's face-to-face, or if it's hybrid, or if it's all online, that bank is there for you to use. So once you have that bank there, it's going to make life a little bit easier. What some of my fellow colleagues have done is actually they build the bank in a Word document, so they always have it and it transfers every year. So every year, all they have to do at the beginning of the year is go add the bank and just copy and paste their bank over. Problem solved. I think it would be nice if Google started to build these banks so that they saved every year, or you could just upload the Google Doc file or a sheet with a list of comments on it. Maybe that's a request that we can make of Google. But for now, like if you create your comment bank and you really, really, really like it, one of the things that you can do is build it in a Word document or in a Google Doc, and then transfer it over, build the bank, save the doc. Next year, pull up the same doc, build bank. You have it for the entire year. So another pro tip is using that comment bank. It will save you some time, especially if you do a lot of commenting. And you can comment in Google Docs or in Google Slides. So in both cases, that's a great way to use this tool. And then my next one, so if you don't want to use video, I get it. Sometimes we're not all bringing our A game to the video. And sometimes, especially if you're virtual learning, you may not be as worried about the video sometimes because, you know, you're throwing your hair up and you're getting ready to grade some things because it's 8:30 and you put the kids to bed. So when we do that, there's a couple of other resources that you can use to do comments. One is Buckaroo, and the other one is an extension called Note. So both of these will let you record your voice, which I like. So I'm going to do Buckaroo first because it's the easiest lift. You don't have to download anything. All you have to do is go to Buckaroo. And what's going to come up is a little recording icon, and I can just record my voice right in the website. I don't need a login. My students would need a login if I wanted them to be able to reply and do the same thing. They don't need a login either. Now, the one caveat about Buckaroo is that when you record, it's going to offer to save a link, and that's great. But if it's something you want to save, I would say for more than 3 weeks, so it's something you want to reuse, you want to download it and save it to your computer, or download it and then upload it to Google Drive somewhere. So it's great for like quick comments that, you know, your students are going to view or listen to it within the next 3 weeks. So I'm going to go here to the record. Hey, that's a really great job. I'm really proud of all of the hard work you put into this particular assignment. It's clear to me that you're really passionate about this topic. So once I've done that, all 9 seconds have been recorded. And here's where I can download it if I'd like, if I want to save it because it's something I want to reuse. Or I just copy the link, go back to my student work, and highlight it, and comment. Now, when my student goes into view his or her work, sees the comment and hits the button. So then take a second to redirect. Great job. I'm really proud of all of the hard work you put into this particular assignment. It's clear to me that you're really passionate about this topic. So I can use my voice even if I don't want to record my face, and I can highlight the different pieces and record my voice commentary that way. So that's one way to do it. And again, you can paste that link anywhere. So if you think about it, even in that instructions piece, if you feel like you need to read the instructions to students on top of typing them, you can read and record the instructions and put that link in with your instructions so your students can listen to your directions. Really, really easy, really quick, doesn't require a login. Now, if you're thinking more advanced, maybe you're thinking, I want to use this a little more often. Another option is something called Note. So Note, let me take us out to it just so you can see it, is an extension that goes into Google Chrome that will allow you to record and post it right into Google Classroom and Docs, and etc. And this link, which I will share in the shared slide deck, is right to the Note website so you can investigate it. There is a free version for teachers. If you wanted just some advanced things, you want to move into the for cost one, but I don't necessarily recommend it. Once you've installed it, it automatically loads into your work. So you may have noticed I have this little purple icon, and you were like, I don't have that icon. That icon's my Note icon because I've downloaded Note. So if I want to, I just start recording right now. I have a whole minute and a half where I can record the comment right here in Google Docs. And you notice I'm not even leaving Google Docs. I'm in it recording right now. So it'll take a minute to think and render it. Now my students will need to have Note installed to be able to access it. But here's the nice thing too for students. You notice how Buckaroo took me out, which was okay. That's fine if I'm not doing a ton of voice commenting. But if I'm doing all voice commenting rather than typing my feedback, they're going to need to download this, but they can play it right in here. Just might not be fun for you guys.
I just start recording right now. I have a whole minute and a half where I can record the comment right here in Google Docs.
So you see, it's nice because it's a little more streamlined, but you want to make sure your students have notes as well as you if you're going to be using note for this particular purpose. Otherwise, it won't let them play it in the comment. So that's kind of like the caveat that goes with using notes. So again, another great way to use just something a little extra with Google Classroom and your Google Docs and giving students feedback and learning in the Google platform. So the last thing I want to let you know about is that the Google Classroom app, which I tried to show you on my iPad, it was okay to show you on my iPad, but it was a little hard, has a couple of different features that are really exciting. So I'm gonna try again with my camera. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna move the camera a little bit and maybe try to switch this around. So I'm going to stop my share. So again, this is on slide 18 as a reminder. So we have the camera and video friendly, which I already showed you. I want to show you, if I can, the annotation feature, as well as the random student selector, which is under people. So I'm going to stop share and I'm going to switch my video here back to my Google Classroom. So I'm just going to angle some things so I can see what I'm doing with you guys. So you see it's a little backwards. I apologize for that. I don't know if there's anything you can do about that right now. There we go. So you're looking at my Google Classroom on my iPad. So when you're dealing with the app, one of the things I want to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to find two so we'll go in there. We'll find our assignments. I'm going to go into classwork. See if I can find one of my essays that have been turned in. So I think this one had something turned in. So we're going to go to turned in so I can see my student who turned it in. I'm pulling up my student's assignment. This is one of my students, clicking on the assignment. So one of the things I want to show you is actually what's up at the top of the screen. So if you look up at the top of the screen, there is a little pencil. If I click that pencil, it's going to bring up the document. And at the bottom of the document, I have annotation features. So I can create a blue pen and mark up my student document. So not only do I have this feature as a teacher, my students have this feature on the mobile app as well. So if they are using Google Classroom on an iPad, technically, all you would have to do is assign a blank Google Doc to them. You could even, if you wanted to, put the numbers in it if it's a math assignment where you want them to do the math problems, and they can write over top of it by finding that pen feature. So I'm going to hit save up here at the top. Again, I apologize, it's backwards, but you get the idea. And it's saving a PDF. So this is great for certain assignments. I don't always want my students or want to myself to be in there writing. A lot of times I prefer to type my comments, or maybe I want to use audio or I want to use video. But in the case of this, what it will do to the student, I can get the right side up here. So it will save it as a PDF with the original student assignment, which is nice because it will also, let me get out of here. Well, maybe. It will also allow the student to go back in and edit his or her assignment. So if it's a situation where I am maybe trying to give some feedback or I want it to be edited, it will save my edits as a PDF with my drawings all over it, but they'll still have their original assignment, which they can go in and type and change. So again, for writing, I like to think about that as like a way to proofread things. For math, it's another fantastic resource. If I close her out. So there you see where it says edited. Again, it's backwards probably for you guys. But if you see where it says edited in there, that's my PDF annotation that I wrote on with a pencil. So all I have to do is then return it, and it allows me to return the assignment to my students. So again, it's another great resource, is that app. I think a lot of times folks overlook some of the features that are in this particular app. Another thing that is in this app that some folks don't know, and it's great for face-to-face, but it might also be great in a Zoom meeting, is down here at the bottom where it says people. I can not only locate all of my students, but I think there is another feature. If you look up here in the top right corner, you see those little blocks up there? It brings up something called Student Selector, which will allow you to randomly pick a student. So when you're trying to do random assignments or maybe your random cold calls in your classroom, you can use this. So it has a start feature at the bottom. Again, I will try to show you. There's a button at the bottom called start. Once I do that, it just randomly picks students. It even keeps track of at the top of who's been picked and who's been not picked. And then I can even select, if you see this, it says call later or absent. So if I call on a student and they're not there, I can quickly mark them absent. And it allows me to do like an attendance. So you may not have known that feature is there. It's under people, and you're just looking for that strange square shaped thing up at the top. So again, if you're looking for that, it's under people. You see the squares at the top? That's what I'm looking for. It's in the upper right-hand corner. And I'm looking under people when I'm in my classroom app on my iPad. So again, there's some virtual stuff on the app that you may not find in the other version. Just like there are certain things on the web version of Google Classroom that do not look like everything else. So I'm going to switch my screen around here. Get my face back up, hopefully. There we go, and we're docking the camera. So those are some of the extra features that are in the Google Classroom app if you are interested. I appreciate you guys joining me today. I'll look and see what questions we have left in the Q&A. If possible, I'd really appreciate it if you go into our fall LearnOn evaluation and give me some feedback on this particular presentation. I apologize that you couldn't see the iPad as clearly as I probably hoped you could, but know that all of those features that are available in the app can be found online too. So if you do a little bit of a Google search, you'll be able to see some images, and I will try to screenshot and put some of those into the slide deck, which will be posted with this particular webinar on our LearnOn website. I appreciate you guys taking the time to join us today. Thank you so much.